Welcome to those who are joining. Tell me how audio video is. Can you hear me? How's connection? All right, Sean, thank you. Very good, welcome. All right. Hello, Chris, welcome. Let's see, this is the share. All right. They changed the UI a little bit around, so I'm still getting used to it. Hello, Gretchen, welcome. We're going to get started so that we can start our meditation around 05. We'll share screen. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sabbe sankara anicchati yadapanyaya passati attani bindati dukkhe samaggo visuddhiya. Sabbe sankara dukkati yadapanyaya passati attani bindati dukkhe samaggo visuddhiya. Sabbe Dhamma anattati yadapanyaya passati attani bindati dukkhe samaggo visuddhiya. Impermanent is all that is conditioned. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. Unsatisfactory is all that is conditioned. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. Without self are all Dhammas. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. All right, friends, welcome to another Dhammapalooza, the Festival of Dhamma with the Magasegi community, where we do a variety of different Dhamma-related activities. And since it's about 05 now, we are going to start our meditation, which will go for about a half hour. And then after that, we'll continue on. All right, so set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you. Whether you're sitting on a cushion or a chair, couch, regardless of where, many of the fundamentals of posture remain the same. We'll spend a little bit of time doing a mindful scan of the body, starting with the feet. Place your focus and attention on whatever feeling or sensation is arising at the feet, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, the opposite leg, etc. try to know that feeling, that experience as deeply as you can. And the more you do this practice before sitting, the more you will come to understand in a deep and subtle way your body and posture, so that you can sit for longer periods of time with less pain and issues. Move up through the ankles into the calves. Through the knees and into the thighs. Was the feeling of the thighs pressing against the chair or the cushion? Move up to the hips and pelvis, checking to see how the angle and position of the pelvis impacts your lower and upper body. You're ready, move up the spine through the abdomen and the chest. Checking that the spine is not leaning or slouching left or right, backwards or forwards, nor that you are trying to force the spine to be very straight. Both of these can cause pain in the back over time as you're sitting, and also possibly constriction of the breathing. Ideally, the spine should just be resting comfortably in its natural curvature, its normal neutral position. Up through to the shoulders, checking that the shoulders are hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. And down through to the elbows and hands, observing how the position of the elbows and hands also impacts your spine and your posture. And then finally, up to your head, checking that the head is also not leaning or slouching here or there. Chin parallel to the floor. When you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. Then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. Your body has been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath as the body breathes in and the body breathes out. Friends, we come to this meditation with many responsibilities, worries, and burdens. Many things that will seek to come to our mind as we follow the breath. Concerns about family and friends, work and school, the world, the society. At the time of this meditation, we practice letting go, laying down all our burdens. There'll be plenty of time to pick them up again later. But for now, like a hiker on a long journey, carrying a heavy backpack, takes the pack off to rest and sits by the fire. Lay down your burdens and follow the breath. As you're following your breath, your mind will become bored, will seek to run away to the past or the future, across the world, to various stories and fantasies. Or an external distraction like a sound will arise, and your mind will become agitated and chase after it. Whenever this happens, being lost in thought worlds with no mindfulness, eventually it will slowly start to dawn on you that you have been taken away from the breath. At that point, fully acknowledge you've been taken away. Come back to mindfulness and focus. Practice letting go of the distraction if it's still there by neither getting agitated and trying to push it away, nor by continuing to be attached and infatuated by it. See if you can do your best to let it go, let it be. Give it no effort, energy, or attention. And then return to the breath. And whenever you get distracted away, no need for frustration, criticism. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't fail as a meditator. This is simply the mind showing you how it works, showing you its craving. You distracted away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Come back over and over, settling your focus back on the breath. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Always come back to the breath. The breath is home base. It's always there, doing its thing, ready for you to come follow it towards a more calm and tranquil mind. Slowly open your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you, your body's position in it, reflecting on the state of your mind before and after the meditation, and contemplating any experiences that stood out. So, as we have been doing after the meditation, I spend a couple minutes just kind of giving a little practice tip. And I wanted to talk about insights today. So, as you're developing the Noble Eightfold Path, you will have insights. And what I mean by insights is not necessarily just like a quick, oh, that's new. I never saw that before. That's part of that. But an insight where the understanding, gaining an insight can be actually a quite profound experience. Um, you can, it's like your mind kind of for a time, I mean, it could be days, could be even weeks, lives in a kind of profundity. And it's experiences like this that most people tend to overestimate their attainments. They kind of think, some people say, oh, I'm awakened. But actually, this is not the case. Um, this is just something that will happen multiple times along the path. You will have an experience, you will gain an insight, and there's a feeling, there's an emotion in the body and in the mind related to that. But that experience actually fades away over time. It goes away. What's left is the knowledge. The insight doesn't go away. Once you've had an insight, you don't forget it. It just doesn't disappear. But the experience wrapped up around gaining that insight does disappear. Could even get to the point I remember a couple times along my path where I'd get worried. There's like I felt like I didn't get a new insight for like 6 months, and I'm like, am I practicing hard enough? What's going on? It's like almost like I was expecting that I should be getting a new insight soon. And that was lots of suffering. But now after some time, now I understand that insights arise when the causes and conditions for them to arise are there. Somebody might, you might have a 9-day meditation retreat and you might think, oh wow, at the end of this, it's going to be so profound. I'm going to be so changed, etc., etc. And you get to the end of it, and it's like, oh, okay. Maybe after a couple weeks home, you just get back to normal. And you're like, well, I guess I didn't get any profound insights from that retreat. And then 4, 5, 6 months, a year later, you're waiting online at the grocery store, and bam, an insight arises. Right? We have these expectations of when and how and in what conditions we should have these insights, but they will arise when the causes and conditions for them to arise are there. So that's my little practice tip for this session. Why don't we, as usual, before I get into starting to read the suttas, if anybody has any questions they'd like me to answer, you can put that in the chat. Those of you who have just joined since the meditation, please feel free, if you're comfortable doing so, saying hello in the chat. While you're all doing that, I'll set up where we were when we finished out last week, just continuing on with the greater mass of dukkha. Hello, Kim. Welcome. All right. So we're continuing on with Majjhima Nikaya number 13. And what is the gratification of forms? Suppose there was a girl of the Brahmins, aristocrats, or householders in her 15th or 16th year, neither too tall nor too short, neither too thin nor too fat, neither too dark nor too fair. Is she not at the height of her beauty and prettiness? Yes, sir. The pleasure and happiness that arises from this beauty and prettiness is the gratification of forms. And what is the drawback of forms? Suppose that sometime later you were to see that same sister, 80, 90, or 100 years old, bent double, crooked, leaning on a staff, trembling as they walk, ailing past their prime, with teeth broken, hair gray and scanty or bald, thin, skin wrinkled, and limbs blotchy. What do you think, mendicants? Has not that former beauty vanished and the drawback become clear? Yes, sir. This is the drawback of forms, i.e. they're impermanent and don't stay as you wish them to be. Furthermore, suppose that you were to see the same sister sick, suffering, gravely ill, collapsed in her own urine and feces, being picked up by some and put down by others. What do you think, mendicants? Has not that former beauty vanished and the drawback become clear? Yes, sir. This too is a drawback of forms. Furthermore, suppose that you were to see that same sister as a corpse, discarded in the charnel ground, and it had been dead for 1, 2, or 3 days, bloated, livid, and festering. What do you think, mendicants? Has not that former beauty vanished and the drawback become clear? Yes, sir. This too is a drawback of forms. Furthermore, suppose that you were to see the same sister as a corpse, discarded in the charnel ground. We're basically going through the mindfulness of death and body stuff of Satipatthana here. The Buddha is giving like a short Satipatthana training in reflecting on the nature of the body, the nature of form. Suppose that you were to see that same sister as a corpse discarded in a charnel ground. It was being devoured by crows, hawks, vultures, herons, dogs, tigers, leopards, jackals, and many kinds of creatures. Furthermore, suppose that you see that same sister as a corpse discarded in a charnel ground, and it had been reduced to a skeleton with flesh and blood. Again, these are the 9 charnel ground contemplations. A skeleton rid of flesh but smeared with blood and held together with sinews. A skeleton rid of flesh and blood held together with sinews. Bone rid of sinews, scattered in every direction. Here a hand bone, there a foot bone, here an ankle bone, there a shin bone, here a thigh bone, there a hip bone, here a rib bone, there a backbone, here an arm bone, there a neck bone, here a jaw bone, there a tooth, here a bone, there a bone, everywhere a bone, bone, and here a skull. Furthermore, suppose that you were to see that same sister as a corpse discarded in a charnel ground, and it had been reduced to white bones, the color of shells, decrepit bones, heaped in a pile, bones rotted and crumbled to powder. What do you think, mendicants? Has not that former beauty vanished and the drawback become clear? Yes, sir. This too is a drawback of forms. And what is the escape from forms? There are ascetics and Brahmins who don't truly understand forms gratification, drawback, and escape in this way for what they are. It is impossible for them to completely understand forms themselves, or to instruct another so that practicing accordingly, they will completely understand forms. There are ascetics and Brahmins who do truly understand forms, gratification, drawback, and escape. In this way, for what they are. It is possible for them to completely understand forms themselves, or to instruct another so that practicing accordingly, they will completely understand forms. So forms, gratification, danger, and escape. So what's the gratification? Oh, this is a beautiful person, a good-looking person, or I have a nice body, right? Kind of enjoying the pleasant aspects of form, being infatuated by the pleasant aspects of form. That's the gratification. The drawbacks we just went over, right? That form is impermanent. Form is unsatisfactory, right? You have a young person and then they get old, they get sick, they die. This is the nature of form. It is unstable and undependable, like all things. And what is the gratification of feelings? So we're going through this framework. Now we're on feelings. It's when a mendicant, quite secluded from sensual pleasure, secluded from unskillful qualities, enters or remains in the first jhana, which has the rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. At that time, a mendicant doesn't intend to hurt themselves, hurt others, or hurt both. They feel only feelings that are not hurtful. Freedom from being hurt is the ultimate gratification of feelings, I say. Furthermore, a mendicant enters and remains in the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana. At that time, a mendicant doesn't intend to hurt themselves, hurt others, or hurt both. They feel only feelings that are not hurtful. Freedom from being hurt is the ultimate gratification of feelings, I say. And what is the drawback of feelings? That feelings are impermanent. That they are suffering when clung to, and they are perishable. They're unstable and undependable. This is their drawback. Hello, Diane. Welcome. It's from the Maggaseka chanting book. Go to one of the MMEs and look in the description, and you can find the link to the chanting book there. Hello, Visaka. All right. This sutta is meat for you. Very good. All right. What is the escape from feelings? Removing and giving up the desire and greed for feelings. No matter what it is in existence that you are investigating, the gratification, the danger, and the escape is literally always the abandoning and letting go of the craving for whatever it is. Right? This is always the escape. Right? Second noble truth. The origin of suffering is tanha, our craving or our thirst. So if you give up your thirst, you give up your suffering. There are ascetics and Brahmins who don't truly understand feelings, gratification, drawback, and escape in this way for what they are. It's impossible for them to completely understand feelings themselves or to instruct others so that practicing accordingly, they will completely understand feelings. There are ascetics and Brahmins who do truly understand feelings, gratification, drawback, and escape in this way for what they are. It is possible for them to completely understand feelings themselves or to instruct another so that practicing accordingly they will completely understand feelings. That is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants approved of what the Buddha said. Any comments, questions? Actually, I didn't realize how close to the end we were last week. I was just going by the little tab. It looked like it was probably a bit longer, but we can move into the shorter discourse unless there's any questions or anything to distract us away from our sutta reading. We'll read it for a little bit, then we have Therigatha and Therigatha to read, Dhammapada, so we have a few things. as usual. All right, so let's read, or at least get started on, the shorter discourse on the mass of suffering. So I have heard at one time the Buddha was staying in the land of the Sakyans, near Kapilavatthu, in the Banyan Tree Monastery. Then Mahanama, the Sakyan, went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to him, "For a long time, sir, I have understood your teachings like this. Greed, hatred, and delusion are corruptions of the mind. Despite understanding this, sometimes my mind is occupied by thoughts of greed, hatred, and delusion. I wonder what qualities remain in me that I have such thoughts." Mahanama, there is a quality that remains in you that makes you have such thoughts. For if you had given up that quality, you would not still be living at home and enjoying sensual pleasures. But because you haven't given up that quality, you are still living at home and enjoying sensual pleasures. And this is interesting, right? So he's like, well, I've heard the Buddha say this, and intellectually I know it, but I haven't given it up yet. It was like, well, yeah, obviously, because you haven't given it up yet. You're still a layperson. You haven't given up sensual pleasures. Sensual pleasures give little gratification and much suffering and distress. And they are all the more full of drawbacks. So Mahanama, even though a noble disciple has clearly seen this with right wisdom, as long as they do not achieve the rapture and bliss that are apart from sensual pleasures and unskillful qualities, or something even more peaceful than that, they can return to sensual pleasures. But when they do achieve a rapture and bliss or something more peaceful than that, they do not return to sensual pleasures. So what this is talking about is jhana. And what this is saying is you could be a stream enterer, but you don't have jhana, so you can still kind of, if you're experiencing an unpleasant feeling or whatever, you can kind of drown it out still with pleasant feeling, which is our typical MO. You see this in the Salla Sutta, the simile of the arrow. So this person is saying that even though they're technically a noble disciple, they're at least a stream enterer. If they don't have jhanas yet, this is what they will do. But when they do achieve that rapture and bliss, or something more peaceful than that, they do not return to sensual pleasures. Before my awakening, when I was still unawakened, but intent on awakening, I too clearly saw with right wisdom that sensual pleasures give little gratification, and much suffering and distress, and they are all the more full of drawbacks. But so long as I didn't achieve the rapture and bliss that are apart from sensual pleasures and unskillful qualities, or something even more peaceful than that, I did not announce that I would not return to sensual pleasures. This is actually very profound. This is another one of those situations where the Buddha is kind of giving you his own practice and his own ups and downs of the practice, right? So he's like, okay, I had right wisdom that this was true, but I still could fall back. So he didn't announce that he would not return. But when I did achieve that rapture and bliss or something more peaceful than that, I announced that I would not return to sensual pleasures. And what is the gratification of sensual pleasures? There are these 5 kinds of sensual stimulation. This is the 5 chords of sensual pleasures. This Bhante Sujato translates as the 5 kinds of sensual stimulation. What 5? Sights known by the eye, which are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, and sensual and arousing. Sounds known by the ear. Smells known by the nose. Taste known by the tongue. touch is known by the body, which are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. These are the 5 kinds of sensual stimulation. Pleasure and happiness that arises from these 5 kinds of sensual stimulation is the gratification of sensual pleasures. And what is the drawback of sensual pleasures? I was hoping that I could reach jhana and give up caramel corn. Unfortunately, you have to kind of take a leap of faith and let go and give up a lot of things, and then maybe jhana can arise. This is I say this as somebody who, it's not easy. I have trouble with that too. It's like, oh, I still have to give up all these things, and then maybe I can have jhana. That's like it's it's easier to kind of fall back on your pleasant habits that can distract you from unpleasant experience. It's easy. Even the Buddha is talking about, before he's awakened, he's going through the same thing. I'm going to have to save this sutta because this is a wonderful companion to the Sala Sutta. All right. What is the drawback of sensual pleasures? It's when a gentleman earns a living by means of such as arithmetic, accounting, calculating, farming, trade, raising cattle, archery, government service, or one of those professions. But they must face cold and heat, being hurt by the touch of flies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, and reptiles, and risking death from hunger and thirst. This is a drawback of sensual pleasures apparent in this present life, a massive suffering caused by sensual pleasures. Then gentlemen might try hard, strive, and make an effort, but fail to earn any money. If this happens, they sorrow and wail and lament, beating their breast and falling into confusion, saying, "Oh, my hard work is wasted, my effort is fruitless." This too is a drawback of sensual pleasures apparent in this present life, a massive suffering caused by sensual pleasures. That gentleman might try hard, strive, and make an effort, and succeed in earning money. But they experience the pain and sadness when they try to protect it, thinking, "How can I prevent my wealth from being taken by rulers or bandits, consumed by fire, swept away by floods, or taken up by unloved heirs?" We saw this in the last one last week. And even though they protect it and ward it, rulers or bandits take it, or fire consumes it, or flood sweeps it away, or unloved heirs take it. They sorrow and wail and lament, beating their breast and falling into confusion. What once was mine is gone. This too is a drawback of sensual pleasures apparent in this present life, a massive suffering that caused by sensual pleasures. Furthermore, for the sake of sensual pleasures, kings fight with kings, aristocrats fight with aristocrats, Brahmins fight with Brahmins, and householders fight with householders. A mother fights with her child, child with mother, father with child, and child with father. Brother fights with brother, brother with sister, sister with brother, and friends with friends. Once they've started quarreling, arguing, and disputing, they attack each other with fists, stones, and rods, and swords, resulting in death or deadly pain. This too is a drawback of sensual pleasures apparent in this present life, a massive suffering caused by sensual pleasures. Once they've started quarreling, arguing, and disputing, they attack each other with fists, stones, rods, and swords. Hello, Wasabi-chan. Welcome. You have mentioned that the jhanas are impermanent, Diane says. So, literally everything is impermanent except for nibbana. Well, Sobe Sankara Anicca, all conditioned things are impermanent. The only thing that's not conditioned is nibbana. Everything else is impermanent. Metta, jhana, all of that's impermanent. This too is a drawback of sensual pleasures apparent in the present life, a massive suffering caused by sensual pleasures. Furthermore, for the sake of sensual pleasures, they don their sword and shield, fasten their bows and arrows, and plunge into battle massed on both sides, with arrows and spears flying and swords flashing. There they are struck with arrows and spears, and their heads are chopped off, resulting in death and deadly pain. This too is a drawback of sensual pleasures apparent in this present life, a massive suffering caused by sensual pleasures. Furthermore, for the sake of sensual pleasures, they don their sword and shield, fasten their bows and arrows, and charge wetly plastered bastions, with arrows and spears flying and swords flashing. There they are struck with arrows and spears, splashed with dung, crushed by a superior force, and their heads are chopped off, resulting in death and deadly pain. This too is a drawback of sensual pleasures apparent in this present life, a massive suffering caused by sensual pleasures. I think we'll stop this sutta there. I'll just leave some space for any questions before I move on to the next one. I love how science can show us that the entire universe is impermanent too. Makes the Buddha's discovery even more incredible. Yeah, certainly. Science hasn't found anything that's permanent either. I think there are still some scientists who believe the universe is eternal, but that's a very small percentage. Right. 801. Why don't we read some Therigatha and Therigatha? All right. So for those of you who are joining who don't know what these are the verses spoken by elder awakened male and female monastics. Tara is the bhikkhus and Teri is the bhikkhunis. These are very wonderful, very inspiring verses. Punna, first. Associated only with the virtuous, the astute ones who see the goal. The wise ones, diligent and clear seeing, realize the goal. So great and profound, hard to see, subtle and fine. Dabba, or Dubba. Once hard to tame, now tamed himself. Clever, content, with doubt overcome. Victorious since his fears have vanished. Dubba is steadfast and has become fully quenched. Cittavaniya. The monk who went to the cool grove in solitary, content and serene, victorious with goosebumps vanished, guarding mindfulness of the body, steadfast. Bhalya. He has swept away the army of the king of death, as a fragile bridge of reeds by a great flood. Victorious since his fears have vanished, tame and steadfast, he has become quenched. That's a nice one, isn't it? Victorious against the king of death, Mara and his armies. Vira. Once hard to tame, now tame himself. A hero content with doubt overcome. Victorious with goosebumps vanished. Vira is steadfast and has become fully quenched. Pilindavacha. It was welcome, not unwelcome. The advice I got was good. Of the well-explained teachings, I arrived at the best. And this advice, you find it in the suttas when Pilindavacha meets the Buddha. So a lot of these will be referencing something you can find in the suttas. So not all of them. There's some that nobody's really been able to find a reference. So it's kind of a little bit vague, a little bit mysterious. But a good chunk of these you'd be able to find that the interaction being talked about in the suttas. Punnamasa, first. A knowledge master, peaceful and self-controlled, is rid of concern for this world and the world beyond. Unsullied in the midst of all things, they know the arising and passing of the world. All right. Let's go to the bhikkhunis. Dhira. Dhira, touch cessation, the blissful stilling of perception. Win extinguishment, the supreme sanctuary from the yoke. Vira. She's known as Vira because of her heroic qualities. So this is Virya. Virya is like heroic, masculine, heroic energy. That's what Virya actually is. It's not like, like a cup of coffee and you're like energetic. It's like really like, being heroic, like putting forth lots of effort. That's what Virya really is. So this is what it's talking about, heroic qualities. She's known as Vira because of her heroic qualities. A nun with faculties developed, she bears her final body, having vanquished Mara and his mount. Metta. Having gone forth in faith, appreciate your spiritual friends, Metta. Develop skillful qualities for the sake of sanctuary from the yoke. Bhadra, having gone forth in faith, appreciate your blessings, Bhadra. Develop skillful qualities for the sake of the supreme sanctuary from the yoke. Upasama, cross the flood, death's dominion so hard to pass. When you have vanquished Mara and his mount, bear your final body. Mutta second, I'm well freed, so very well freed. Freed from 3 things that humped me, the mortar, the pestle, and my humpbacked husband. I'm freed from birth and death. The conduit to rebirth is eradicated. This is a funny one. There's a couple of ones like these. Actually, for both for bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. For the bhikkhunis, it's like this, like the mortar, the pestle, the pan, whatever, and my husband. And for the bhikkhunis, it's like the hoe and the rake, like all like kind of like farming implements. So it's like awakened beings reflecting on that they're free of these things. Dhammadinna. One who is eager and determined would be filled with awareness, their mind not bound to pleasures of sense. They're said to be heading upstream. Visakha. Do the Buddha's bidding, you won't regret it. Having quickly washed your feet, sit in a discreet place to meditate. Sumana. Having seen the elements as suffering, don't get reborn again. When you've discarded desire for rebirth, you will live at peace. Uttara. I was restrained in body, speech, and mind. Having plucked out craving, root and all, I'm cooled and quenched. Right? Let's do 5 more bhikkhu, and then we'll be evened out and we can move on. Let's see. Oh. Chulavacha. A monk full of joy in the teachings proclaimed by the Buddha would realize the peaceful state, the blissful stilling of conditions. Mahavacha. Empowered by wisdom with precepts and observances intact, serene, loving jhana, mindful, eating just the needed food. One should await one's time here, free of desire. Vannavacha. First, glistening, they look like blue storm clouds, with waters cool and streams so clear, and cover it all in ladybugs. These rocky crags delight me. All right. The novice Sivaka. My mentor said to me, let's leave here, Sivaka. My body lives in the village, but my mind has gone to the wilderness. I go there even when lying down. You can't snare those who know. All right. Now we know the Pali for ladybug, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Hello, Ivy May. Right. I hope Abigail isn't having too much suffering. Let's do Dhammapada. The monk. Good is restraint over the eye. Good is restraint over the ear. Good is restraint over the nose. Good is restraint over the tongue. Good is restraint in the body. Good is restraint in speech. Good is restraint in thought. Restraint everywhere is good. The monk restrained in every way is freed from all suffering. Barely alive. Well, that doesn't sound very pleasant. May you feel better soon. He who has control over his hands, feet, and tongue, who is fully controlled, delights in inward development, is absorbed in meditation, keeps to himself, and is contented. Him do people call a monk. That monk who has control over his tongue is moderate in speech, unassuming, and who explains the teaching in both letter and spirit. Whatever he says is pleasing. The monk who abides in the Dhamma, delights in the Dhamma, meditates on the Dhamma, and bears the Dhamma well in mind. He does not fall away from the sublime Dhamma. One should not despise what one has received, nor envy the gains of others. The monk who envies the gains of others does not attain to meditative absorption. A monk who does not despise what he has received, even though it be little, who is pure in livelihood and unremitting in effort, him even the gods praise. He who has no attachment whatsoever for the mind and the body, who does not grieve for what he has not, he is truly called a monk. A monk who abides in universal love and is deeply devoted to the teaching of the Buddha attains to the peace of Nibbana, the bliss of cessation of all conditioned things. Empty this boat, O monk. Emptied, it will sail lightly. Rid of lust and hatred, you shall reach Nibbana. Cut off the five, abandon the five, and cultivate the five. The monk who has overcome the five bonds is called one who has crossed the flood. Meditate, O monk, do not be heedless. Let not your mind whirl on sensual pleasures. Heedless, do not Do not swallow a red-hot iron ball, lest you cry when burning, "Oh, this is painful." There is no meditative concentration for him who lacks insight, and no insight for him who lacks meditative concentration. He in whom are found both meditative concentration and insight, indeed, is close to Nibbana. This is Bhante Gunaratana's end of the, if you've ever done meditation with Bhante G, at the end, this is the phrase that he says. There is no concentration without wisdom, no wisdom without concentration. He in whom is found both wisdom and concentration is close to emancipation, is close to Nibbana. It's a wonderful statement. The monk who has retired to a solitary abode and calmed his mind, who comprehends the Dhamma with insight, in him there arises a delight that transcends all human delights. Whenever he sees the insight, with insight, the rise and fall of the aggregates, he is full of joy and happiness. To the discerning one, that this reflects the deathless. Control of the senses, contentment, restraint according to the moral monastic discipline, these form the basis of holy life here for the wise monk. Let him associate with friends who are noble, energetic, and pure in life. Let him be cordial and refined in conduct. Thus, full of joy, he will make an end of suffering. Just as the jasmine creeper sheds its withered flowers, even so, O monks, should you totally shed lust and hatred. The monk who is calm in body, calm in speech, calm in thought, well composed, and who has spewed out worldliness, he truly is called serene. By oneself, one must censure oneself and scrutinize oneself. The self-guarded and mindful monk will always live in happiness. One is one's own protector. One is one's own refuge. Therefore, one should control oneself, even as a trader controls a noble steed. Full of joy, full of faith in the teaching of the Buddha, the monk attains the peaceful state, the blissful cessation of conditioned things. That monk who, while young, devotes himself to the teachings of the Buddha illuminates the world like the moon freed from the cloud. All right. I think we can move to our closing out business and sharing of merits. So for those who are watching for the first time, you can find out more information about myself and see my different events and activities on the website listed on the screen, maggasekha.org, maggasekha.org. For an update on the call to action regarding setting up the little Maggasekha Vihara in Colorado. We are about halfway to the $1,000 goal, something like that. And so things are progressing. We'll have to see if the probably ambitious goal I set of living in Colorado by next June actually comes to be. But things are looking promising. So, all right. I think that's probably about, oh, I have retreats coming up. Retreat in August, September, and October. The first, go to the website. You can see the post I made with the link to sign up for the first retreat, which is the Satipatthana retreat happening in August. All right, let's share merit. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, antasabbe pipaniyo, etavata chamehi sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu sampasambanti siddhya, akasata jabumata devanaga mehitika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakang tu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving be free from grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours that we have acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends, so we have come to the end of another Dhammapalooza. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy and at ease. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which could be tomorrow morning for Morning Monastery Experience at 8 a.m. New York time, or maybe next week for another Dhammapalooza. So have a good week.